Hello. All right. Welcome to another edition of Here. Here.
Here.
There he is. The creator of Here.
Oh,
Tom
wow.
Jennings. And we got another new guy joining us for this particular episode. And we'll also be joined later on by a surprise guest. So you're not going to know who it is until you stay tuned. But anyhow, this is our third episode. And Tom, why don't you start off by telling us what album you gave me and Davey to talk about here, and why you gave it to us and all those choices there.
Awesome. Well, thanks, everybody. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel, Tuning In with Tom Jennings. I'll let Davey plug his and subscribe to this channel as well. Very simple concept. We introduce a record to our friends, and they tell us whether they like it or not. So today, one of my favorite human beings on the planet is part of this particular record. There it is. Look at that. Price
Vinyl. Wow.
Sulton. Yeah. So Price Sulton, Tommy Price. I spell my name Thom. He's Thommy. And Tommy Price was a drummer. He, I think he's still in Joan Jett's band. I know I've seen him play with Joan Jett in recent years. Staten Island guy. Chasm Sulton, most famous, for being the bass player of Utopia, Todd Rundgren's band. Still tours with Todd when Todd tours. Right now he's out on the road with a Beatles tribute called All You Need Is Love, AYNIL. And he's done the Gilmore Project, and of course was the musical director for Meatloaf. Well, post Utopia, actually Chasm left Utopia for a short period of time. He came out with a solo album just called Chasm. And there's a great story behind that one, but that's not the one we're talking about. So after Utopia splits up, he joins with Tommy Price for this group called Price Sulton. I was very excited at this particular record coming out, hoping to hear Chasm Sulton sing a bunch of new songs because I love Chasm's voice. And in the case of Price Sulton, he only handles the vocals on a couple of tunes, but I enjoy those tunes a lot. And in fact, the name of the record, the proper name of the record is Lights On. And I think if you look at the cover, you can sort of see it was designed for the MTV generation. I think that's what they were going for. The group didn't last long. I'll be interested to hear your take on it. It's in terms of the Utopia community, it's a bit divisive. There's a lot of people that don't particularly like this record. I don't fall in that category. I love this record. But you could definitely tell that it was more geared towards an 80s sound, particularly almost reminds me more of Billy Idol than Joan Jett or anybody else that the two of these guys were working with. But they, again, short-lived. They had a video that you can find on YouTube, a little bit of airplay on MTV, not a whole ton, and did a couple of live shows, and that was it. Gone, but not forgotten. Or as the Utopia song goes for you Utopia fans, forgotten but not gone. But actually, no, they are gone but not forgotten. So there you go. Right. That's my introduction. Two Staten Island boys trying to make it in a rock and roll world.
All right. Why don't you give us your rundown there, Davey?
Okay, my rundown. Somehow, even though I worked in record stores for over 30 years, I never heard this, and I don't even recall seeing the cover. So it was totally new to me. And then I know Chasm Sulton from Utopia, and I said, who is this Tommy Price guy? And I looked him up, and he played with all these bands like Scandal and Billy Idol and Joan Jett. And I think I saw him play with Joan Jett and the Blackhearts a few years ago when it was Tesla, Styx, and Joan Jett touring together. I think Tommy Price was the drummer.
I'd almost guarantee it.
Excellent. So I did see him. And then with the new Cars, about 15, 16 years ago, however long ago that was, I did see Todd and Chasm Sulton playing the new Cars with Elliot Easton, Greg Hawkes, and Prairie Prince, I think, may have been on drums. So I've seen them both live separately, and this album was very new to me, and it's definitely of its time. It sounds like it's right from the 80s, right from the mid-80s. It's overproduced a little bit. There's a lot of keyboards. Every song is just drenched in keyboards. and it's commercial and it's very catchy. There's a lot of hooks, and I thought they could have released a bunch of singles from this that could have been hits if it had the right promotion. I don't think CBS put their whole effort into promoting it because it could have been bigger. It sounds like there were a lot of songs. Oh, this could have been a single. The first time I played it, I was humming the songs, and it's just very catchy. And I have a little description of each song. I don't know, Joey, do you want to go over the songs one by one, or?
Yeah, I didn't get that in the detailed on it, so you can bring them up, and then if I have anything to say about a particular song, I'll mention it. But I do want to say, I don't believe this was intended to be something that was going to last. It sounds like it was just like a one-off project. Is that correct, Tom?
I don't believe so. No.
Have you
I mean,
ever
it's like
talked?
anything, here's the deal. It's like I mean, the first Star Wars movie was technically intended to be a one-off, but it became Star Wars. I think it's like anything. You do a project, and yeah, I mean, in terms of you not hearing about it, I mean, this is a major label project too. This isn't like it's something that they were doing to fulfill any kind of obligation or anything. My personal opinion is that it suffers from the name. I think they should have come up with a catchier name, but that's a catch-22 because both of these guys are established to some degree at that point. So their names have some value. But unfortunately, Price Sultan, again, are they big enough names where it makes sense? Whereas if you came up with another name, maybe you could promote it. But yeah, I don't know, Davey, I agree with you. I think there's 2 or 3 songs that had hit potential. Maybe this was a little bit past its time. Like maybe it was just a little too much, too Billy Idol and musical taste had moved on. I mean, I don't know.
A lot of it sounds like Bon Jovi to me. I was going to recommend it to my sister. I think she might like it. She's a huge Bon Jovi fan.
Well, Bruce
Just very
Fairbairn
catchy.
produced Chasm's first solo album. He's the guy that produced that Slippery When Wet, if I believe, if I'm correct. Yeah. Yeah. So you're talking Staten Island guys as opposed to New Jersey. So, I mean, you're from that particular area. I mean, there was sort of a bit of a sound that was coming from that area.
Well, these guys were childhood friends. And the video for, what is it, Shotgun Shy, shows them growing up as kids in Brooklyn and how they're friendly as young guys together. And that reminded me of growing up here in Queens. So I thought the video was a good video, but it may have gone over the heads of a lot of people. Yeah. And I didn't even have MTV at the time. So I didn't get MTV until the late 80s here in Queens. We were one of the last parts in Queens here to get wired for cable. So I didn't get MTV till 1988 or so, 87, 88. I used to watch Friday Night Videos and Night Flight. That's how I saw all my videos back in the day. On NBC, and what was that? TBS, I think, had Night Flight. TNT, TBS, I think it was TBS.
What year is this, Joey? Did you look it up?
86, it said.
Oh, it is 86. Okay, yeah, because the last Utopia album came out in 85. So
it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean 86. I mean it's still MTV, still kind of cranking. I mean they were. I don't know. I don't remember what the top albums were in 86. If Billy Idol, if that kind of sound was still charting, but yeah, it's weird.
So who
I don't think it has the edge of Billy Idol.
Well, Tommy Price is. Let's be honest. Tommy Price is not a strong vocalist. He's serviceable, but he picked material that was really good for his voice.
But neither of these guys are really frontmen. They're more sidemen. No insult to your friend.
Oh,
but Todd Rundgren was the
don't ever say that. No, I mean, Chasm is a great performer in his own right. But I understand what you're saying in terms of, yes, they may not necessarily have had the I don't know. Chasm's got 2 other solo albums that are 3 other solo albums beyond the first one that are just phenomenal. And it just bugs the crap out of me that he doesn't get the airplay that or respect that he deserves, because he kind of lives in Todd's shadow, and he's just so much more than that as an artist.
Neither guy has the name recognition. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So the producer was Michael Young. Is that correct?
Yeah, sounds good to me. I don't know.
Oh. Well, if you notice, Michael Young actually got his start in the Bearsville studios. So he worked with Rundgren. So it sounds like the connection there.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be. I mean, did he produce anything else?
That I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
But
could have been an
he had a credit
in-house
on
producer.
Hermit of Mink Hollow. I'm not sure exactly what. Let me see.
Probably engineering. I don't think he would have had any production credit.
Hmm.
The wonders of the internet. All right. Well, Davey, why don't you go ahead and at least cherry pick a few songs, and then we'll.
Yeah, just do a few songs.
Okay.
The three that you thought that stood out the best for you.
Okay, Shotgun Shy. It's
The first one.
overproduced. Yeah, it's overproduced. It's keyboard laden, 80s glossy pop rock, but it's very catchy. Cool Eddie Van Halen inspired brief guitar solo and some nice outro riffs. And I think Tommy Price was playing guitar on this record, at least the lead parts. I said the video reminds me of growing up in Queens, like they did in Brooklyn. And although it's fluffy pop, I like this song. It's very catchy. No TV, No Phone, the second song. It has that 80s drum sound, that bam, thwack, right at the beginning. So it's obvious it's right from the 80s. You can't mistake that for any other era. It sounds like a Bon Jovi song to me. This song was featured in the 1987 Susanna Hoffs bomb of a film, The All Nighter.
Don't
Now, I
call
did
her a
see that
bomb.
film. Yep, I did see that film, but the only reason I saw it was to see Susanna Hoffs from the Bangles. I remember nothing about the film, though, not a thing. Hooky keyboards throughout the song. The guitar solo once again hints at early 80s hair metal. 38 years later, this sentiment does not hold true. That's what I wrote about that one. And then we'll do Lights On, the title track. Some trite, banal lyrics here, but who outside of Townsend and Neil Peart was writing great lyrics in the 80s? Although it's catchy and well played, this album sounds like a product of the decade it came out in. It's from a time and a place. So it's a very catchy, poppy rock album. I like it. It's not amazing. It's not horrible. I would listen to it again.
Yeah. Well, Chasm does a bunch of the guitar. Tommy does guitar on as well. So they both play lead. I mean, Chasm's played lead in some Utopia stuff and on his solo stuff too. But there was a guest guitarist,
which I'll bring up because that was what I was going to say
you
next.
Knew that one.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I was going to say his name, his one of his bands has already been mentioned.
Yes.
There's a tease. There's a teaser.
Shotgun Shy is definitely the best tune on the album. It kicks off and finds style of the album. Definitely it catches your attention. Goes into No Phone, No TV, No Phone, which is a really decent follow-up. I like how it's got like that 1-2 punch. And of course, their guest guitarist plays on that second song, No TV, No Phone, and that is none other than the old left-handed guitar player, Mr. Elliot Easton, from none other than
the new Cars
and the new Cars.
Yeah.
Oh, he was in the Cars too. Oh wait, no. I thought isn't he the guy that was in Creedence Clearwater Revisited?
He was,
dude. Not that Elliot Easton will ever watch this, but man, did the two guys, what was it, Stu Cook and Doug Cosmo Clifford? Man, did they say it was not fun to work with him? And anyhow, go ahead.
Yeah, so Elliot Easton guests on 3 tracks on this album. That
I
was
didn't even know that.
The other was Shanna.
Yeah.
You didn't do your homework good enough. Thank you. And Heaven's Girl was the other song. But there's another special guest on here. I don't know if anybody caught it, but on Something's Gonna Happen, we got background vocals by none other than Beverly Hill.
She loves rock and roll.
Jett.
Yeah.
Exactly. Nope. Joan Jett, just background vocals only. So I don't know how much she stands out on it, but it's interesting in that manner there. And to round out the credits, we got Danny Lewis on keyboards, additional keys, Tommy Mandel, and rhythm guitar, Phil Grand. So the way they got it listed here, Tommy and Chasm, both lead vocals, both guitar, both backing vocals. And then obviously Tommy handles the drums and the percussion, and then Chasm handles the bass. So it sounds like, it's hard to say who played guitar on which song, on the other ones. They both could have. Who knows?
Yeah, it says Steve Stevens is on here, but it doesn't give him specific
no credit. Huh?
It's a special thanks to, and then it says he appears courtesy of whatever label it is. Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
So there's a lot of ties in here that I never heard of this album either, and I thought it was. I go leave it to Tom Jennings to give us something with somebody Todd Rundgren related, Utopia related, and I had a feeling that's exactly what we got. But I'm gonna give this album a thumbs up, a slight thumbs up. It's definitely overproduced, like Davey said. It's definitely very dated sounding with the 80s keyboards all over the place. But a good album is a good album regardless. When you hear, the 1-2 punch to start it off definitely sets it on the right path, even though by the end it kind of the B side kind of loses me a little bit, but
it's more front loaded. I agree.
Yeah,
Definitely front loaded.
Yeah. But it's still, for an album that I never heard of, and I think it's very, very, very very nice that Tom came up with an album, that we did either, especially you being in the biz 30 years and you never even heard of it yourself. So that's amazing that he was able to pull one by you there. So
many releases, not enough time.
All right, so that
it's I don't know, it's a weird, it's a set. I remember when it came out, and I think I might have had to get a special order from the record company, but I said the only thing that bummed me out is I wanted to hear more Chasm Sulton vocals, just because I love Chasm, I love his voice. It's one of my favorite singers.
Okay, so that leads us into the next album that we gave Tom Jennings and our special guest to rate. Our special guest won't be showing up till later on, so we'll let Tom talk about it. And that album is the one that I chose this time around for for you. And it comes from a guy that he's just so sweet. It's amazing. But yeah, Matthew Sweet is the guy we're talking about, the alternative rock power pop singer and songwriter who has really made a name for himself in the power pop category. We're talking about his third album from his discography here, and that's going to be the 1991 release, and that's Girlfriend, which came out 1991, recorded in 90. It's an hour worth of music on here on the old, now defunct Zoo Entertainment label. So it's got 15 tracks in all. So it's definitely, in my estimation, I think it's a little too long. I'm one of these old school guys that like to just have 8 to 12 songs tops on an album. But when you start putting in 15 just to fill up a CD, I think a lot of these bands, if they could go back in time and trim the fat, so to speak, on a lot of their albums, I think we would have a lot more albums that would stand out more from the CD age period. I just feel that people, I don't know if it was the record companies that did it or if it was the artists intentionally doing it. Some of them, I guess it was a little bit of both. But they always felt the need to really cram everything they could onto a CD, and that's why I think a lot of these albums are uneven. You're putting 15 tracks, trim it down to the top 10, your album will flow better, number one, and it's going to stand out more too. But that's just me, I guess, an old school kind of guy here. So Tom, let's get your take on what you thought of this album, and did you ever hear of it before, and all that good stuff?
So Matthew Sweet, yes, he came out with 2 albums with Susanna Hoffs. She's from
Great.
the band.
Well after all this, yeah.
But that's when I fell in love with Matthew Sweet, because he did some Rundgren covers and did a great job with them. The one rendition I really remember song that they did cover wise on the Under the Covers was the Raspberry song, All the Way. And I say that because I think it's interesting that this particular record sort of, in many ways, reminded me of that kind of musical approach. It reminded me of the Raspberries, which is just ear candy. you know. And we were all joking before we came on air that, I don't listen to a lot of stuff from the 90s, but it was funny. I was listening to this particular record. The first time I listened to it was while I was walking the dogs in my earbuds. And then, I listened to it in the car, and, I try to get stuff in different experiences. I was like, damn, man, like Joey did okay. This one really works. Like, I really, really like this record. And I don't know if I'm the only one that heard this, but there's times when his voice sounds like Tommy Shaw. Am I the only one that am I just insane? Or did I just have Tommy Shaw in the brain?
Maybe a little resemblance in points, in parts.
Yeah. There's parts. I don't know if it's the vocal range, if it's whatever I'm not technical when it comes to singing, but man, there's parts of it. So, and I used to be, part of my musical background, how I wound up getting into journalism, was that I was a mobile disc jockey. Now, I know, Davey, you said you used to work in a record store. Well, I used to work in bars. I did weddings and stuff, but my main forte was working in bars for like these, classic rock happy hours where you'd have rock trivia, and, I'm playing 45s and all that kind of stuff. And eventually that graduates to CDs. So I was always looking for certain songs that were a little bit different, but were catchy. And I know that Girlfriend was one of those. And I used to sing Sick of Myself in one of the bands that I was in. So I was definitely familiar with Matthew Sweet. This particular record, was I familiar with it? No, but it all of it sounds very familiar. When Girlfriend came on, it was like one of those songs where I go, man, I haven't heard this song in a long time. And I don't know why, because I really like it. It's just a good, catchy song. And again, everything he does, it sort of reminds me of, that Raspberry sensibility. But as you listen to this record, I do agree with you. It's a little bit too long. It's definitely CD era stuff where they kind of said, oh, just put lots of material on the record. And it seems like he just has the ability to just craft songs at will. But there's also this weird thing that I had really never noticed before in his materials. He has this kind of occasionally these little country and Western influences, or I guess back then they didn't call it Americana, but sort of what you could call Americana, the tinges of it. And in terms of production, it was a very warm production. I know, Davey, you talked about it. You did too, Joey. One of the things about the Price Sulton record is that it sounds like an album produced in the 80s, and as I said, all roads lead back to Todd Rundgren, which I apologize to people that are sick of hearing his name from me. But, one of Todd's fortes was that when he produced records, he produced them warm, as opposed to a guy like David Foster, who had that pop big sound in the 80s. And that was so that it wouldn't sound quite as dated, And I think this record holds up well because of the production elements. I think the vocals might be a little bit too much in the mix for my liking at times, but I could see where they'd put it up there, because really he is the big feature. Love Evangeline, that was just a song that, I don't know, I just really enjoyed, and really just the first three songs just out of the gate just kind of pull you in, and it's a fun ride. So definitely enjoy this album. And I would say, Joey, you did well on this one, picking this one. This is one I really enjoyed, and one I'll go back to and listen to again, and probably enjoy, and probably start listening to a little bit more Matthew Sweet than I had in the past.
Yeah, definitely. I got a lot of Matthew Sweet albums myself, but it's one of those ones where I saw him, got him at like one of those when FYE was closing the superstores down. They had all their CDs on sale. So I'm going through there trying to find artists that I don't have, and there was a lot of Matthew Sweets in there. So I snagged them up at a really good price, because I knew, but at that point I was familiar with a lot of his catalog. I just didn't have any of it. You know what I mean? So that's how I got a lot of these, and I never really had, tell you the truth, really gotten much of a chance to play much of them. But this one was always the one, out of his. He had two albums go certified, and obviously Girlfriend went gold, reached number 100, and then the 100% Fun is actually his best charting album at number 65. That one also went gold, and that's the one where you mentioned with Sick of Myself on. that famous song from the 90s there. Yeah, oddly enough, none of the albums, the Under the Covers with Susanna Hoffs, they released 3 of them, 2006, 2009, 2013. It's odd that none of them, uh, well, 2 of them made the charts, 192, 106, and the 3rd one didn't. But like you said, he did a lot of, he covered "Hello, It's Me." Um,
Couldn't I just
so
tell you? Yeah.
yeah, and you said, yeah, yep, that one. So he picked, a wide variety of songs on these Under the Covers, and I've got a couple of them, and yeah, he does do a really good job. And of course, Susanna Hoffs, what can be said about her? She's one of those.
Oh, voices. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I got to see her solo once many years ago. Back in the it must have been the last time she ever toured, really. She hasn't done nothing as far as touring anymore, which is such a shame because she's really really a great performer. But she did a great version on the first Under the Covers, different drum. Uh, I just love that song.
Yeah.
And then
That one can't be beat though.
yeah,
She
exactly.
did have that one solo album after the Bengals broke up, and that solo album went nowhere. Another bomb.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, it's weird, man. We just don't, we've had this discussion a little bit here today and probably other times before. It's just, and Davey, having worked in a record store, and Joey, I mean, you and I being music collectors, it just, there's so much of it just depends on the ability of the label or willingness or financial position for a label to get a record in front of people. And unfortunately,
Yes.
there's been so many records that die just because, and you also think that, I think we've part of the reason that some of these bands, like I know recently there was a story about the Guess Who, for example. Burton Cummings and for years he's been livid about the Guess Who moving on without him and whatnot, and he's talked to me about it personally, and I get where he's coming from, but the sad reality is that so many music consumers, they don't really pay attention to the individual members of the band.
It's
I mean,
the name recognition.
yeah, you call it the Cars. You take one of those Rick Ocasek solo albums that he put out, and the one that Joey gave me last week or last time we did this show, and you throw the Cars on it. And if he's the only member, somebody's going to call BS on it and go, well, it's not really the Cars, it's just Rick Ocasek. But if it's the name the Cars, people are going to buy it, and they're going to go to the concert if he's the only guy there. So yeah, it's tough when the you think the individual name would carry some weight, but unfortunately, I think that it's kind of limited to the music aficionados.
all right, we promised you a special guest, and here he is, none other than Mr. David Hens. Welcome.
Oh, thanks again for having me. It's good to be here.
All right, so this is your first Here episode, and
Yep.
obviously we're doing this right now. So you were given the same album as Tom Jennings, and he dissected down his take on "Girlfriend" by Matthew Sweet. And let's hear what you got to say about it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I hadn't gone back and listened to this whole album in a while, so it was cool to get back into. I mean, every once in a while you'll hear the title track on the radio still, but nothing else. And he doesn't even tour that frequently anymore. Like he does, but he doesn't really come to this part of at least in New York State too often.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of like, this is one album that's constantly cited as one of the best of the 90s, but you don't really hear it that often. So it's more of just a critical favorite, I think. But yeah, I mean, my first, exposure to Matthew Sweet was 100% Fun, which is 2 albums after this one from 95. I mean, back then you couldn't go anywhere without hearing Sick of Myself on the radio. I still love that song. That's just the guitar.
Yeah.
And that's so, but yeah. So he got divorced in 1989, and this is basically his breakup album. I mean, he kind of like exercises all the demons of his relationship throughout these songs. And it's because it's a CD era. I mean, it is 15 songs, which it's kind of long, but I mean, it's like a little over an hour running time, so it doesn't really. There are a couple moments on here where I thought he kind of drags a bit, but I mean the lyrics are great, the songwriting is great. It's definitely got that kind of like Beatles influence, kind of like the guitar tone from Revolver. I get a lot of that on here. So like the And Your Bird Can Sing, that type of guitar tone, I feel like that's definitely something you get a lot throughout this album. And like, I mean, he's talking about like depressing subject matter, but he presents it in kind of an upbeat, effervescent way. So it makes it a lot more fun than it should be. So, but yeah, I mean, the opening track, Divine Intervention, is great. I mean, really his secret weapons on here. He's got Richard Lloyd from Television playing guitar, and he's got a lot of great fills on here. But Robert Quine, who is he played with Lou Reed, he's another great guitar player. You never hear him, but his soloing on here is great. His tone is great. He shreds all over this album in a lot of ways. I've Been Waiting is a great song. I mean, it like predates New Miserable Experience by the Gin Blossoms by a year, but I definitely can feel it like the Gin Blossoms may have been influenced by that song. It's got that kind of jangle guitar poppy sound to it. And then the title track is great. I mean, Winona, it takes a little dip there for me, just kind of like the tempo slows it down. But he's got like Greg Lees, who plays a pedal steel guitar on that song, and also You Don't Love Me, who he's known for playing with Jackson Brown's band in recent years. So that's kind of cool. And then, I mean, it takes a little dip from like maybe from like 8, 9, and 10, like Thought I Knew You, You Don't Love Me, and I Wanted to Tell You. But then once he gets back to like Does She Talk and Holy War, I think those are two of the stronger songs on the album. He kind of picks it back up, and then he finishes it with Nothing Lasts, which is an acoustic track. So, you know, I think going back and listening to it, I've listened to it from front to back like 3 or 4 times in the last 2 weeks, and it's definitely, you know, its reputation for being one of the best albums of the decade, I think, definitely holds up for me. And I even went onto his website and tried to look to see where he was coming around, but it's like I think the closest he's coming is Missouri, so that which is quite a haul. But yeah, so I like it. I'd like to see him live at some point because I feel like his voice is great, and I feel like he hasn't really lost anything. I've gone on YouTube and watched some clips of him performing this stuff in recent years, and he still sounds good. So I feel like, you know, like if I was going to rate the album out of 10, I'd maybe give it like an 8.5. So I think it after all this, like almost after more than 30 years, I think it still holds up really well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was cool. The last time he was here was actually the same night as Roger Waters played at the arena. So basically, we were in line trying to get in for Roger Waters, and we can actually hear Matthew Sweet and kind of see him from across the street there over at because the canal side right there by the arena. So yeah, you know, it was pretty cool, but at the same time, it kind of sucked because we weren't able to actually be right there for the show like we wanted to be.
Yeah.
But he wasn't. He was just like an opener too. He wasn't even like the headliner that night. So, but a great, great. You know, yeah, it'd be great to see him because he hasn't played the area all too well. He opened up on a bunch of shows at Darien a couple times. It looks like he played the Trough in 01.
Yeah.
And he actually played at Shea's. And if I remember right, I believe he opened for Melissa Etheridge back in '94. So that goes back a ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been quite some time. So it'd be nice if he came around one of these days. So you figure with all these '90s packages, it's amazing how he don't pop up on one of those. You know?
Yeah. I mean, we get those '90s tours that run through here every summer, pretty much. It feels like.
Yeah, he'd be one of those good guys to put on one of those ones that Sugar Ray or good old you know, those guys run what you call it, Art from Everclear. He usually runs the Summerland. That'd be a perfect candidate to have on one of those type of tours. So I'm just kind of surprised they didn't do that. So, you know, and that's just a shame. But anyhow, yeah, it was a good choice. Glad to hear that you liked it. And it's good to seeing you. So thanks for chiming in with your 2 cents. And sounds good.